He sat silent in the hospital, his eyes fixed on the wall, his hand holding a folded letter he was too afraid to open. The machines hummed around him, each sound reminding him that life was fragile. And then, just when the silence felt endless, the doctor whispered words that shook his heart. "She needs you now more than ever." In that moment, Keanu Reeves realized this night would change everything. The hospital hallway was quiet but not empty. Machines hummed softly, shoes tapped against the floor, and whispers of families carried through the air. Yet in the middle of this living place of silence and hope, Keanu Reeves sat alone. He did not speak. He did not move. He only stared at the white wall in front of him, as if that wall could tell him the answer to the storm inside his chest. People passed by him. Some recognized him, most did not. To them, he was just another man sitting in the waiting area, his shoulders heavy, his eyes darker than the night. But inside, Keanu was living through a weight he could not explain. It was his birthday that day. And still he was here. Not in celebration, not with laughter, but in the middle of a hospital, silent and broken. In the first minutes of this story, you must understand one thing clearly. This is not a story about fame or money. This is a story about being human, about facing moments when the world feels like it has stopped, and when even the strongest must learn to sit with pain. Keanu's hand rested on a folded letter. The paper was soft at the edges, as though it had been touched too many times, maybe even carried for days. His fingers pressed on it, but he did not open it. He feared what was inside, yet he also knew it could not be ignored. Every second he sat there, the weight of that letter grew heavier. A nurse walked by and looked at him kindly. She saw the sadness in his eyes, the way he sat motionless, and she wanted to say something comforting, but she knew this man's silence was not ordinary. It was the silence of someone waiting for news that could change his life. So she only gave him a gentle nod, as if to say, "You are not alone." Keanu returned the nod with the smallest movement of his head, but his lips did not part. Suddenly, the sound of a crying child filled the hallway. It was sharp, it was loud, it echoed across the walls. Keanu's eyes shifted toward the sound. He saw a mother holding her little boy tightly, whispering words of comfort while her tears mixed with his. The boy was no older than 7. He wore a hospital gown, his small body thin, his face pale. Keanu looked at the boy, and something inside him cracked. In that moment, his own pain collided with the boy's suffering, and he realized how connected all humans are in these walls. Pain does not care about age, about wealth, about fame. Pain only reminds you that you are alive and that you are fragile. He thought about his own childhood, about the times when hospitals were not unfamiliar to him. He thought about the people he had lost, about the nights when grief sat with him like a shadow. He thought about how he had always tried to show kindness to others because he knew the world could be cruel without reason. Minutes passed like hours. The letter still rested in his hand, unopened. He thought maybe today was not the day to face what was inside. But then the door to the emergency ward opened, and a doctor walked out, scanning the room. The doctor's eyes found Keanu, and in that instant his heart raced. The doctor walked toward him. Each step felt louder than the machines. Keanu held his breath. "Mr. Reeves," the doctor said softly, sitting down beside him. "I need to talk to you about what we found." Those words cut through the silence like a knife. Keanu's chest tightened. The letter trembled in his hand. For a moment he could not even reply. His voice was trapped somewhere deep inside. The doctor waited. He placed his hand on Keanu's shoulder. "This may not be easy to hear," he continued. "But I promise you, you are not facing it alone." And here, dear listener, the story truly begins. Because what Keanu learned in that hospital did not only test his strength, it tested his spirit, his kindness, and his very understanding of what it means to live. This was not just another hospital visit. This was the moment that would change everything. The doctor's words were slow, careful, as if every sound carried a weight too heavy to drop. Keanu listened, but his mind spun faster than the sentences could form. He wanted to believe it was something small, something simple, but the tone of the doctor's voice told him otherwise. It was the kind of tone you only hear when life is about to shift into something unknown. The tests showed something unusual, the doctor said. We need to act quickly, but we also need you to understand what this means. Keanu stared at him, his lips pressed together, his fingers gripping the letter as if it were the last piece of solid ground in a collapsing world. He had faced loss before. He had faced emptiness, but this time felt different. It was not only about him. It was about someone he loved, someone connected to that folded piece of paper that burned against his palm. He wanted to ask questions, but his voice betrayed him. Silence wrapped around his throat. Instead, he nodded slowly, urging the doctor to continue. The doctor leaned closer. We believe she has a chance, but the window is small. Her body is fighting, but it is weak. This is why we need you strong for her. She will need your presence more than anything else. Those words pierced him. She. The truth of it cut into his chest. It was about her, the woman who had been his anchor through storms, the one whose laughter once filled his quietest nights. He had not seen her in years, yet she had never left his heart. And now, after so much silence between them, fate brought her back here, in a hospital bed, fighting for life. Keanu leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, his hands covering his face. 1,000 images rushed through his mind, moments of joy, arguments that seemed endless back then, but now felt meaningless, promises broken, promises kept. He had always thought he would find the right time to speak to her again, to tell her he never stopped caring. But time had slipped through his fingers, and now only this moment remained. He lowered his hands slowly, looking at the doctor. Can I see her? His voice cracked, quiet but filled with urgency. The doctor nodded. Yes, but I need you to be prepared. She may not respond. Her condition is unstable, but she will know you are there. The words echoed inside him. Unstable, not respond. But then the smallest spark of hope flickered. She will know you are there. Sometimes that is all a heart needs to keep beating. Keanu stood, his legs unsteady. The letter nearly slipped from his hand, but he caught it. He thought about leaving it on the chair, but something inside told him the letter belonged with her. It had waited too long to be opened, and maybe, in her presence, the courage to unfold it would come. The hallway stretched before him like a tunnel, each step a battle between fear and hope. The cries of the child he had seen earlier still lingered faintly in the air, mixing with the rhythmic beeping of machines and the low hum of fluorescent lights. It felt as though the entire hospital breathed in unison, waiting for what would happen next. He reached the door. His hand trembled as it touched the handle. For a moment he hesitated. What if he walked in and found her slipping away? What if the silence between them had stolen the chance for reconciliation? But then another thought came, sharper and stronger. What if his presence was the very thing she needed to stay? He opened the door. Inside, the room was dim, but a soft glow from the machines painted her face in delicate light. She lay still, her chest rising and falling slowly, her skin pale yet peaceful. Wires and tubes surrounded her, but beyond all of it, Keanu saw the same person who once held his heart in the gentlest way. He stepped closer, his breath shallow. Memories collided with reality. He remembered the nights they had shared stories under the stars, the mornings filled with laughter, the way her eyes always carried both fire and kindness. And now, those eyes were closed, her strength hidden deep inside, fighting battles unseen. He pulled the chair beside her bed and sat down. For the first time since he entered the hospital, he spoke, his voice breaking through the silence like a fragile beam of light. I'm here. His words trembled but were steady enough to reach her. He watched her hand, still and delicate, lying on the white sheet. Slowly, carefully, he placed his hand over hers. It was cold, weaker than he remembered, yet it still carried the warmth of familiarity. As he sat there holding her hand, something unexpected happened. Her fingers twitched, ever so lightly, but enough to make his heart leap. It was as if her body recognized his presence, as if her soul whispered back to him. I know. Keanu's eyes filled with tears, but he did not let them fall. He squeezed her hand gently, his other hand clutching the unopened letter. The moment was fragile, and he knew any second could tilt toward loss or toward a miracle. Then, the door creaked open again. He turned and saw the nurse who had nodded at him earlier. She stepped in quietly, her voice soft.
She hasn't moved like that for hours.
You being here, it matters. Keanu nodded, unable to speak. He understood now more than ever. The story unfolding in this hospital was not just about sickness. It was about presence. About the unseen power of being there for someone when they need you most. He leaned closer to her ear, whispering words only she could hear. I never stopped caring. I should have said it years ago, but I'll say it now. You're not alone. And in that fragile silence, the monitor beside her gave a stronger beep. Her breathing steadied just slightly. And for the first time that night, Keanu felt the faint glow of hope pressing against the walls of his despair. But he knew this was only the beginning, because the letter he held in his hand was still unopened, and inside it was a truth that could change everything. Not just for him, not just for her, but for the very meaning of their story. Keanu sat by her side through the long hours of the night. The hospital lights dimmed, footsteps grew fewer, and the hallways outside fell into silence, broken only by the sound of machines keeping time. He did not move much, afraid that if he looked away even for a second, she might slip farther into the darkness. The letter remained in his hand. He kept staring at it, the folded edges bent from his tight grip. Each time he thought about opening it, fear pulled him back. Inside was the truth, and sometimes truth is more frightening than silence. Yet he knew he could not wait forever. He looked at her again. Her face was pale but peaceful, as if she were resting in some hidden world between life and loss. The faint twitch of her fingers from earlier gave him hope, but it also burned a question deep into his heart. What if this was the last chance to tell her everything? What if the letter held something she needed to hear before it was too late? He took a deep breath, unfolded the paper slowly, and began to read. The handwriting was shaky but familiar. It was hers. Dear Keanu, if you are holding this letter, then something has gone wrong. I never wanted you to see me in this condition, but I also could not leave this world without saying the words I once failed to say. I have carried them for years, and they have burned inside me. I am sorry for the silence. I am sorry for the distance. I am sorry for the pain I gave you. But please know, I never stopped loving you. Keanu's chest tightened. His eyes blurred as he read the words. Each sentence felt like a knife and a healing touch at the same time. You once told me that kindness is the only real treasure. I did not understand it then, but I do now. I see it in how you lived, how you carried yourself even when broken. I see it in the way you treated strangers as if they were family. I wanted to tell you that I am proud of you, even from afar. I wanted you to know that you gave me strength I never admitted. His hand trembled. He stopped for a moment, pressing the letter to his chest, as if holding it closer would bring her voice back to life. Then he continued. If I do not wake up, do not let this be your weight. Let it be your wings. Do not carry my silence as regret. Carry it as proof that even in the darkest hours, love survives. And if I wake up, promise me we will not waste another day apart. The last line was underlined. The ink smudged as though a tear had fallen onto the paper while she wrote it. Keanu closed his eyes and tears slipped down his face. He whispered her words back to her softly, as if to stitch them into the air between them. Do not carry my silence as regret. Carry it as wings. As he spoke, the monitor beside her gave a sharper beep. Her chest rose a little stronger. Her eyelids flickered for the first time. His heart pounded. She's responding, a nurse said as she hurried in. Her eyes widened as she looked at the monitor. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Keanu held her hand tighter. He bent closer to her ear, whispering, I read your letter. I heard every word. You're not leaving me like this. We still have days left to live, days to fill with laughter, days to make new promises. Come back to me, please. Her lips parted slightly, almost invisible, but enough to make his breath catch. He leaned closer, desperate to hear even the faintest sound, and then, in the weakest whisper, came a single word. Keanu. He froze. The sound was fragile, broken, but real. She had spoken. His heart leapt. Tears poured down his face, but he did not wipe them. He wanted her to see them when her eyes finally opened, so she would know that he never stopped caring, never stopped waiting, never stopped believing. The nurse stepped back quietly, her eyes filled with emotion. She did not want to interrupt what she knew was more powerful than medicine. The pull of human love, the force of connection. Keanu pressed his forehead against her hand. I'm here. I never left. I will not leave. Her fingers twitched again, this time stronger. The monitor steadied. Her chest rose deeper with breath. It was as if her spirit was fighting its way back, fueled by the truth that had been spoken at last. But even in that moment of hope, fear lingered. Because life inside a hospital is never certain. One good sign can be followed by a sudden fall. One whispered word can be swallowed by silence again. Keanu knew this. Yet he also knew that hope had entered the room, and once hope arrives, it is hard to drive it away. He sat with her, whispering memories, stories, little fragments of their past. Each word was a thread, and together they began to weave a fragile bridge, pulling her back from the edge. As dawn began to break outside, light spilled gently through the window. Keanu looked at the sky turning pale gold, and for the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this story would not end in loss. But deep in his chest, he also felt another truth. Stories with this much weight never move in straight lines. And he knew the hardest part was still to come. The pale light of morning filled the hospital room, soft and golden, brushing across her face like a gentle hand. Keanu had not moved from her side. His eyes were tired, but he refused to close them. He was afraid that if he blinked too long, he might lose the fragile miracle that had just begun. She had spoken his name. Only once. Only in a whisper. But it was enough to shift the entire world inside him. Still, he knew it was not the end of the storm. Her body was weak, the machines steady but not yet strong, and the weight of uncertainty still pressed against the air like a heavy fog. The nurse returned with quiet steps, checking the monitors, adjusting the wires. She looked at Keanu and gave a small nod. She is fighting, she whispered, but the fight is not over. Keanu held the letter in his lap, his fingers tracing over her handwriting again and again. The words inside still echoed in his mind. Do not carry my silence as regret. Carry it as wings. Every time he repeated that line to himself, he felt strength rise in his chest, though his heart was still trembling. He leaned closer to her and whispered, I read your words. I am here. I will not let the silence win again. For a moment, her eyelids moved, but they did not open fully. He could see the struggle in her face, as if her spirit was pushing against a wall too heavy to break. He squeezed her hand gently, and to his surprise, her fingers squeezed back, faint but undeniable. Hope surged through him. He whispered again, That's it. Don't give up. Come back to me. I'm waiting. I've always been waiting. Just then the door opened and another figure stepped in. An older man, weary but kind, holding a folder close to his chest. He looked at Keanu with gentle recognition. You must be Mr. Reeves, he said softly. I am the attending physician. I have something we need to discuss. Keanu's heart tightened. The tone was cautious, not hopeless, but heavy enough to make his stomach turn. He stood, careful not to let go of her hand. Tell me, he said. The doctor glanced at her, then back at Keanu. Her body is responding, yes, but her heart is fragile. She needs more than medicine now. She needs reason. She needs light. She needs the will to fight from deep inside. Sometimes survival depends not only on machines, but on what a person feels is worth waking up for. Keanu swallowed hard. He looked down at her face, pale yet still beautiful, even in its stillness. The truth struck him like a wave. He was not only here as a visitor, he was here as her reason. If he failed to give her that, the fight might slip away. The doctor continued, his voice steady. There is a risk of sudden decline. We will do everything we can, but you must be prepared. Sometimes, even when the body tries, the spirit lets go. But if her spirit holds on, even fragile hearts can surprise us. Keanu nodded slowly. He sat again, his eyes locked on her face. Inside him, fear and hope wrestled like shadows and fire. He whispered, You hear that? They believe in you. But I believe in you more. You once told me that I made you feel strong. Now I need you to feel that again. Please. His words floated through the room, filling the silence with something alive. The nurse watched quietly, her eyes wet with emotion. She had seen countless patients, but rarely did she see this, the raw pull of love refusing to surrender. Hours passed like entire days. Keanu stayed, whispering stories from their past, moments of laughter, small secrets they had once shared. He spoke about their first walk together, about the nights when they dreamed of the future, about the arguments that seemed so large back then but so small now. Every memory was a thread, and with each thread he tried to stitch her spirit back to the present. And then, when he thought she might slip again into silence, her lips parted. A sound came, broken, weak, but undeniable. Why?
Are you here?
Keanu froze. His eyes widened, his heart pounding. He leaned closer.
Because I never left you.
Because I never stopped caring. Because you are the reason I still believe in kindness. Her eyelids fluttered. For a moment, he saw her eyes, faint, tired, but real. They looked at him as if searching for the truth behind his words. He whispered, I read your letter, every word. I heard your heart. I forgive you for the silence. I only want you to live. A tear slipped from the corner of her eye. It rolled slowly down her cheek, shining in the morning light. Keanu reached out, wiping it gently with his thumb, his own tears falling freely now. She tried to speak again, her voice almost lost.
I thought you hated me.
Never, he whispered firmly.
I hurt, yes.
But I never hated you. I carried you with me every day, and I would carry you still, even if all I had was memory. But I don't want memory. I want you, here, alive. Her breath shuddered. Her hand trembled against his. For the first time since he entered, her eyes stayed open longer. The machines beeped steadier. Something unseen had shifted. The nurse gasped quietly, her hand covering her mouth.
She's fighting harder now, she whispered.
Keanu bent forward, resting his forehead against hers. That's it. Stay with me. Let this be our beginning, not our ending. The room fell into silence again, but this time it was not the silence of despair. It was the silence of two souls speaking without words, of love rediscovered in the shadow of loss. Yet deep down, Keanu knew this was not victory. This was only a fragile step, a small flame in a storm. The days ahead could bring light, or they could bring darkness. Nothing was certain. But for now, for this fragile hour, hope had been reborn. The hours stretched endlessly, but Keanu did not let go of her hand. He kept whispering, afraid that if silence returned, she might drift away again. Each breath she took was fragile, as if borrowed from the air around her, and yet every small rise of her chest felt like a miracle. For the first time, her eyes stayed open, though heavy. She stared at him, as if she could not decide whether he was real or just a shadow from her memory. Her lips trembled, trying to form words, but her strength was too weak to carry them. Keanu leaned closer, his voice soft. Don't waste your energy on words. I am here. I will understand even if you say nothing. A faint smile touched her lips, so small it could have been missed. But to Keanu, it was brighter than the sun. The doctor returned, his face unreadable. He studied the monitors, his hands calm but precise. She is stabilizing, he said quietly. But the danger has not passed. Her body is fragile, and there may be sudden turns. You must be prepared for both hope and heartbreak. Keanu nodded, though his heart clenched. He had lived with loss before. He knew how quickly hope could be stolen. Yet something inside him refused to surrender this time. He whispered to himself, Not again. Not this time. He turned back to her, clutching the letter again. He read her own words back to her slowly, letting each sentence fall into the air like a prayer. Do not carry my silence as regret. Carry it as wings. As he spoke the line, her eyelids flickered and her hand squeezed his again. See? He whispered, his voice breaking.
You hear me?
You are here. But then, suddenly, her breathing grew uneven. The monitor spiked, the beeping quickened. Nurses rushed in, their faces sharp with focus. Keanu's chest dropped. His hand tightened on hers as the doctor gave quick orders. Stay with her, the nurse said firmly to Keanu, her voice strong. She can hear you even now. Do not let her slip. Keanu leaned closer, his forehead against hers. Listen to me, he whispered urgently. Don't go, fight. If not for me, fight for yourself. Fight because you still have light inside you. Fight because the world is not finished with your kindness. For a tense moment, everything seemed to hang in the balance. Machines beeped wildly. Nurses moved quickly, and Keanu poured every word of love he had into the space between them. Then, slowly, the rhythm steadied again. The room exhaled with relief. The doctor gave a small nod.
She is not ready to leave yet.
She heard you. She is holding on. Keanu closed his eyes, tears falling freely. He whispered, "Thank you," though he did not know if he was speaking to her, to the doctor, or to something greater. As the nurses left, the room returned to quiet. Keanu's voice softened, his words now heavy with both fear and hope. "You scared me," he said, his hand brushing her hair gently. "But you're still here, and as long as you're here, I will not move. I will sit with you, fight with you, breathe with you." She blinked slowly, her lips parting again. Her voice was faint, almost broken, but Keanu caught every sound. "I don't deserve you." His heart shattered at those words. He shook his head, gripping her hand tightly. "Don't ever say that. Love is not about deserving. Love is about giving, and you gave me more than you will ever know." A tear slid down her cheek. Keanu leaned closer, wiping it away softly. "You are enough. You always were. I didn't come here to measure what you gave or what you didn't. I came here because you matter. Because I still need you." For a long time, she only stared at him, her eyes filled with both pain and longing. Then, slowly, she whispered,
I thought you had forgotten me.
Keanu smiled through his tears, shaking his head. "I couldn't. No matter where I went, no matter what I faced, you were still there, in every quiet moment, in every night I sat alone. I never forgot. I never stopped." Her breathing steadied, as if his words had given her strength she did not have before. She closed her eyes briefly, but this time it was not the silence of despair. It was rest, gentle and calm. Keanu leaned back, his hand still over hers, his chest rising with heavy breaths. He realized then that this was not only her battle, it was his too, because if she walked away from this world, a part of him would go with her. The hours crept by. Outside, the day moved forward, but inside the room, time felt trapped in a fragile bubble. Every beep of the machine, every twitch of her fingers, every flicker of her eyelids carried the weight of eternity. And then, as the evening shadows stretched across the room, she whispered again, her voice barely there. "Keanu, if I live, promise me something." His heart pounded. He leaned close. "Anything."
Tell me.
Her lips trembled. "Promise me." "We will not waste another day." Keanu pressed her hand to his lips, his tears falling onto her skin.
I promise.
From this moment on, no more silence, no more distance. Only days filled with truth. Her weak smile returned, fragile but real. And in that moment, Keanu felt something shift inside him. For the first time in years, he was not only holding on to memory, he was holding on to possibility. But as night fell again and the machines hummed softly, he also knew the story was far from finished. Fate had given them a fragile promise, but tomorrow could bring either light or another storm. The night pressed heavy against the hospital windows. Keanu sat in the same chair, his hand still wrapped around hers. His body was tired, his eyes red from hours without sleep, but he did not move. He could not. Every beat of the machine beside her was a fragile reminder that life was still with her, that the promise they had spoken was still alive. The silence of the room was broken only by the rhythm of the monitor and the soft hum of air through the machines. Yet inside Keanu, storms clashed. He had promised her that they would not waste another day. But what if tomorrow never came? What if fate had given him hope only to take it back? He leaned closer, his voice soft and trembling. "You must hold on. We still have to live those days we spoke about. I have waited too long to let them vanish now. Please, fight. For us." Her chest rose slowly, her breath uneven, but her eyes opened again. They were faint, tired, but alive. She looked at him, her lips parting weakly. "I'm afraid." Keanu pressed her hand firmly. So am I. But we will be afraid together. You don't have to fight alone anymore. Her tears slipped down her cheeks. I don't want to leave you again. Then don't, he whispered fiercely. Stay with me. There is still light waiting for us. We can find it together. For a moment, the air in the room felt different, fragile but full of unseen strength. Her breathing grew steadier, her eyes stayed open longer. It was as though his words had anchored her spirit to the present, pulling her back from the edge. The doctor entered quietly, studying the monitors with a careful eye. Then he looked at Keanu and nodded slightly. She is responding. Her body is weak, yes, but something inside her has changed. She is choosing to stay. Keanu closed his eyes, whispering thanks under his breath. But the night was not finished testing them. Hours later, just before dawn, the alarms suddenly blared. The monitor spiked, nurses rushed in, and panic filled the room. Her body trembled, her breathing faltered. She's crashing, one nurse shouted. Keanu's chest collapsed. He leaned closer, shouting against the storm. Don't leave me! You promised me we would not waste another day. You cannot break that promise now. The machine screamed louder. Doctors worked quickly, voices urgent, hands moving fast. Keanu held her hand tighter, his forehead pressed against hers. Tears streamed down his face. Listen to me, he whispered, his voice breaking. You are my light. Without you, I am lost. Please, please don't go. And then, in the chaos, something unexpected happened. Her hand moved, gripping his back with surprising strength. Her eyes opened wide, tears spilling out, and she whispered one word with the last of her strength. Stay. The monitor steadied. The alarms quieted. Her breathing returned, fragile but steady. The room froze in silence. The nurses looked at each other in shock, then at Keanu. The doctor exhaled heavily, his face filled with relief. She pulled herself back. The doctor said softly, I have seen many fights, but this is rare. She chose to stay. Keanu sobbed, his tears falling onto her hand. Thank you, he whispered to her again and again. Thank you for staying. As dawn broke, light spilled into the room. For the first time in what felt like forever, Keanu smiled. Not the faint smile of survival, but the real smile of a man who had been given back what he thought he had lost forever. She looked at him weakly, her lips trembling. You kept your promise, he nodded, pressing her hand to his heart. And I always will. No more silence, no more distance, only truth, only us. The hospital room was still filled with machines and wires, but to Keanu it no longer felt like a place of despair. It felt like the place where love had been tested, where silence had been broken, and where hope had returned. They had faced the storm, and though the road ahead was uncertain, they now carried something stronger than fear. They carried the promise of days not wasted, of kindness reborn, of love that had survived the edge of loss. Keanu sat with her as the morning sun warmed the room. His hand never left hers, and for the first time in years, he felt not only alive, but whole.